out on a jetty, perhaps a half-mile from where I sit. I watch waves easily crashing up and over a jetty that is minimally 10 feet tall. The waves pounding into the shore right now are getting up into the 5-foot area, and they will be well beyond that.
We don't see the windsurf anymore. We don't know what happened. Either he booked out really quickly, or he fell over out there. We're not able to tell. It's getting windy down here. It's no worse than it is on a really windy day. But as Mike has told you, we can expect a lot worse. And a lot of people we've been seeing on the beach here today tell us they're going to stick it out tonight. That guy, Frank, says he's going to stick it out tonight. Hopefully we'll be able to talk to them tomorrow. But sadly, a few of those people may not be able to talk to us. We'll be here all night, all day tomorrow. Reporting live, I'm Patrick Fraser.
And Penny, you and Sally both have been out here. You come out here and you look at this seawall, you look down and you see some rocks just below the surface. Oftentimes those rocks even stick up out of the surface. As a matter of fact, most times around this time, that's what you would see. You see the rocks sticking out. Well, if you go out there right now, what you see is that the rocks are actually about 1.5 feet underneath the surface. That means that tidal surge that we've been telling you so much about today. The experts about that surge and how we are going to see the water coming up over the seawall in certain places. Well, we're almost seeing it already, and it's only 6:30. I mean, you might say that the estimates were somewhat conservative. We were told that around midnight tonight, the water would first start coming over these seawalls. We are, a good 5 to 6 hours away from that, and it looks to me like it's going to happen a whole lot sooner. If you look over my shoulder over there, you see some of the spoil islands in Biscayne Bay. Those are the famous islands at Cristo, wrapped in pink so beautifully. Those are going to be wrapped in water pretty soon, and you can see the seawall over there on the left. That's North Bay Village, this small island where we're located here in the middle of the North Bay of Biscayne Bay, and you can already see that the water is only about a foot from the top of the seawall. Now, there is no way on God's green earth that water is not going to be on that green lawn next to that building on the first floor of that apartment unit. No way. I mean, it's absolutely impossible. I mean, unless something incredibly severe happens to the storm. You can already get the sense out here that these seas, this Biscayne Bay, is preparing itself to actually come over the shores, and that's what we've been talking about all along. Now, up here in the North Bay, we're told, at least historically, that the surge is not going to be as powerful as down around South Bay, down by Matheson Hammock. There, the surge can go, if we get to a Category 5, as high as 16 feet. Picture 16 feet. I'm not a tall guy, but even the big guys, I think, would have a hard time staying afloat on that. In this area where we are right now, the surge could come up as high as 8 to 10 feet. Nonetheless, it's certainly enough water to drown in, and it's enough water to have all kinds of problems with. You start to get the feel for it as you look out in Biscayne Bay right now. It's preparing to do just that. You can almost see the wind, Penny, Sally, actually pushing the surf back into this direction. Now, the hurricane is actually right over there as I'm looking at it right now, and it's coming in this way. And as you look at the surf, you actually see the waves coming back in this direction and hitting the seawall just exact way as it's been described.
You know, Rick, can we take a little bit tighter shot of the water right now? I'd like to see how close those waves are to coming right up to your feet.
Yeah, I think we can. It's hard for me. I don't have a monitor anywhere near me, so I don't know. You can see. You're going to have to tell me
what you're... Ask the photographer to zoom in a little bit more on the water as it's, you know, lapping up towards the top of the... That's it.
You see the water right there. You just saw one of the waves actually come over the seawall and get this area over here wet. It's hard because the camera that I'm facing right now is actually a good 75 yards away from me, so it's hard to get that perspective.
You know, I'm curious, Rick, when you said a storm surge could go up to 16 feet,
that's right,
8 to 10 feet, where you are standing right there, that's just out our back door. It sent a cold chill up my spine. Looking toward the building there, does that mean this building would be flooded at 8 to 10 feet?
That is absolutely what it means, and we at Channel 7 would be crazy to think that it may not happen. That's why we've made the contingency plans to perhaps move our facilities to Broward, also to our transmitter, because if present trends continue, that is to say, if everything that we see happening right now does in fact happen, there's a good portion near the eye of the storm, certainly within 35 miles north and south, that's going to hit this area where we are right now. If that were to happen, we would see a surge that would be at least as high as 8 feet, possibly higher in this area. Down around South Bay, the surge could be even higher, perhaps as high as 16 feet.
All right, let's Jillian Morey's standing by, and let's talk some more about this storm surge. This is what everybody fears the most from hurricanes, and
it's a huge
what could cause us
wall
to
of
move
water, as I understand. It's just going to go very high and go over everything.
and cause us to move to higher ground at some point.
Absolutely.
And still broadcast to you, but we'll go to a different spot. Let's turn to Jillian and see what she has to say about this storm surge.
Well, unfortunately, Sally, to add insult to injury, tomorrow morning at about 8:01 is high tide. Now, the worst case scenario that we're looking at, it's 7 to 10 feet above above normal tide level, and we could see even as high as 13 feet of water in the Biscayne Bay area alone. That's what we're up against. The high tide just happens to be at 8:01, and we're looking at a hurricane arriving by daybreak. So this is not even good news, obviously, if there is any good news out of this whole situation. The current statistics show that, again, he is still moving to the west at about 16 miles an hour, backing winds of 150. In fact, let's just pull those right down and go back to the loop, because those right now are outdated. So let's go back to the loop if we can. Thank you. There it is, moving west. He is now 240 miles east of Miami, and take into consideration that the winds ahead of the eye, that means the eye is 240 miles away from us. The winds ahead of it expand 135 miles. So what we are up against tonight, Sally and Penny, is this. Tropical storm winds will start to move in this evening. We're talking 40-mile-an-hour winds. By the pre-dawn hours, hurricane conditions will start to move upon us. And by daybreak, we are looking at the full-fledged hurricane. Now, exactly where? Well, they're forecasting between Dade and Broward, or around Dade and Broward, if that eye continues to move on that westerly latitude mode. And in fact, it has been doing so. There is really nothing around it other than high pressure. So if there was a deterrent, it would be good at this point. And as someone mentioned earlier, it would have to be a miracle at this point for an upward slope or a downward swoop, because it's just not going to happen. So again, it is now currently 240 miles east of Miami. It is continuing to the west at 16 miles an hour, and the winds associated with this 150 miles an hour. The pictures outside we just saw with Rick are sobering, perhaps even more sobering is what you hear on the phone with Michael Williams, who again is in Nassau. Very, very sobering sounds and sights, that's for sure. And again, we'll be up against the worst later on. And once again, I'll be here live as long as I can be, bringing you the current statistics on Hurricane Andrew. Back to you for now.
Thank you, Jillian.
Jillian just mentioned Michael Williams, who is our eyes and ears in Nassau in the Bahamas. We were talking to him a little while ago, and things were really, really picking up. The winds were really picking up badly there. We heard it. He saw it. Michael, are you with us?
Yes, Penny.
What's happening at this point out your window?
Well, it continues to just get worse by the minute almost, and I know that's overworked, but it literally is, Penny. The skies are just a slate gray. Visibility is down. I'm staring at a old barge, about a 40-foot boat somebody anchored off here, and it looks like it's starting to list a bit and taking on some water. They tried to anchor it offshore. I am certain that by morning it will either be underwater, somewhat offshore, or it will be on the shore. There's no way it's going to hold up to the weather here. And as for the winds, well, everything is starting to whip wildly about outside. I must say, a few moments ago, we got our first flicker of the electricity, our first sign that the electricity here is not going to be on that much longer. The waves are 6 feet, perhaps 6 feet plus. Hopefully in the next few minutes, I'll have the latest estimates on wind speed. In fact, I think I'm getting it right now. I'm told from my photographer, Anthony Pineda, that they're now saying our winds at this moment are at 42 miles per hour, keeping in mind that the storm still has approximately, what, Tony? How much longer to get here?
Okay, Michael,
About
we
8 to 8:30 is when we're going to really be in the heart of it. From then to 11, it will continually get worse, and we've already got winds over 40, and they're just going to get that much greater as we go along.
Okay, Michael, we need to wrap things up for this hour right now. Stay with us as long as you can, and we will get back to you as soon as possible when we come back for our 7 o'clock hour.
Well, as you know, the winds are starting to pick up in South Florida. We are now beginning to feel the effects of this Hurricane Andrew, and it's only going to get worse. All we can say at this point is please get to a shelter while you can at this point. There's going to be a point where the roads are impassable and you can't get to a shelter, and they are filling up, and you need to go. If you haven't gone, go. Here are some that you can, some locations of shelters. You might want to check them out.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Things are
going very, very well at Jack.
Rain has already made it into the coastal areas and already pushing into Florida. As you can see, that storm a couple hundred miles offshore. So from here on out, those northeasterly winds will continue to increase. Again, winds have been up at one point in time to 150 miles an hour. And you know, Rick, that takes us to another question. What happens once it gets across the peninsula and into the Gulf of Mexico? I guess we're dealing with the immediate right now, but we could have some problems once it's over there.
Let's get back to that theme in just a little bit. Right now, let's introduce Michael Williams into this conversation. Tom, don't go away. Stay right where you are, because Michael may have some questions for you. Michael, are you there?
Yes, Rick.
Michael, we're looking at that satellite picture that we've been talking about now all this time, and you know, when you look at that picture, we could see a little speck right there where that line is, that latitude line that Tom just referred to. That is where you are, and the eye of the storm is going to be passing, it looks like, less than 40 miles above you.
Well, that's accurate, Rick, and believe me, right now we feel like we're on a very little speck indeed out here in the Caribbean, about a 21-mile by 7-mile speck to be more precise, New Providence Island. And I must tell you, Rick, it's a very eerie feeling listening on the phone for the past hour or so to the frantic preparations that go on there and looking out my window and seeing the fearsome reason for it. Darkness came early, and Rick?
Yeah?
All the electricity just went out, even as we spoke. The power lines are blowing all over the place here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. We haven't lost your phone connection, and it's a good thing we have it. But
eventually, Rick, all the power, the lights had been flickering on for the last hour or so, and we knew that this would happen eventually, and all the power has gone out. So the long night is upon us. Darkness came early enough anyway, as Hurricane Andrew's storm front blotted out the sun, and we have lost all electricity now. We had prepared for it, like you at home in South Florida. We filled up the bathtub with water. We brought our own supplies. But electricity, from as far as I can see, and I have a pretty good vantage point, it's completely out in the hotel where we've taken refuge. And as I look up and down the streets here, it looks like it's gone out just about everywhere. My photographer, Tony Beneda, is turning on one of our Frezzi lights, so we have a little light outside the window, Rick. I'm starting to see the palm fronds being stripped from some of the palm trees. That's how fearsome it is. Some of them bending over. The rain itself is actually blowing so hard it's not falling down. It can be moving horizontally, if you can picture that right now.
We sure can, Michael, and we're kind of concerned about you. We're going to ask you to stand by, let you get a chance to maybe get a flashlight or two and get your bearings now that it's dark. We've got to do some things, take care of some business right here, and then we're going to get right back to you.
Okay.
we got an advisory coming. We'll be right back.
Photographer Calvin Delfair is sitting on the hood of this car, and we are going to take a ride and show you what Fort Lauderdale looks like at this time, about 6 o'clock in the evening, with Hurricane Andrew heading this way. You're looking at the Atlantic Ocean surf at this point, some white caps, but doesn't look too serious yet. The storm, believe it or not, that hurricane is definitely on the way. You see these windows here that have been taped up. This is not going to stop the wind. I can guarantee you that these storefronts will be absolutely flooded come morning. And you see at least one store there is boarded up. But again, the stores that did not board up their windows, there's no way that they will make it through the force of this hurricane without significant damage. You see the strip, there is construction here along A1A. This has been going on for quite some time. And you notice all these barricades that line the road. These will become airborne. These are the kinds of things that should have been removed before the hurricane arrived, but unfortunately they were not.
Run!
On just about any windy day, you'll find guys surfing off of Fort Lauderdale's beach. And this is especially true on the day before a hurricane. When the winds start to pick up, the ocean starts to move.
Oh shit, that looks like lava.
The surf could be up higher than it's ever been before. We're going to talk to these guys as soon as they make their way to shore. What would you say to people who say that you're a nutcase, that you shouldn't be in this ocean, you should be finding a safe place to stay right now?
Well, there's bungee jumpers, there's parachutists, rock climbers, mountain bikers, motorcyclists, NASCAR drivers. They're all doing everything in their own way. It's just whether they like to do it and suffer the consequences that come with it.
But why pick this day to go in the ocean and surf?
Because the ocean's been flat for 5 months. And we haven't seen nothing for 5 months. And everybody's hoping that, something's going to come in right before it's dark. And all the surfers will know. They know when to get out of there. Unless they're stupid enough they want to hang out all night, then you can't surf in the dark.
What's the status here? You letting people surf? You letting people use the beach at this time?
Yeah, we're not really telling people what they can and cannot do. We're just advising them to, leave the area if at all possible, which...
There are potential problems there, and so I would assume that you will be evacuating that facility sometime no later than, say, midnight or so.
You know, you mentioned earlier the first time we'd had a major hurricane like this one here was in the 1940s. Back in the 1940s, a lot of these islands that we're on right now didn't exist because these things are man-made. What do you make of this?
Well, indeed, that's how a lot of that land was sold out there. It got all that beautiful water around it. You just put this little sort of seawall up there and pump the land in behind it. Had a beautiful way of life there until hurricanes come along.
What does that mean, though, if this hurricane comes along? I mentioned earlier it's untested. For the most part, it is, correct?
Water will come across into those areas. If you get that 8 to 10 feet of rise, maybe even 12 to 14 some parts of Biscayne Bay, indeed the Star Islands and some of the others there, you'll be getting some of that water across those small islands.
Yeah, and that's a situation I think everybody's most concerned about because we don't know what's going to happen. Have you gotten any indication out of what's been going on in the Bahamas, exactly what kind of storm surge we can expect?
Well, they get over there a little less than we would get in some of these situations. Now, a lot of those little islands are sort of tucked in behind the big island of Miami Beach, and so they don't have a long time for the water to build up, and that's the good part. It's the ones that set out and have a big stretch of Biscayne Bay down there. So the larger rises in Biscayne Bay are actually going to be down in the south zone probably as compared to up in around the Star Island area.
Yeah, we shall see how well man made those islands. That would probably be the true test, wouldn't it?
Well, it's not going to have a long period of wave action. See, it's the wave action that erodes away and destroys seawalls, and since this hurricane is moving along at a fairly steady speed, you're not going to have a long period of that wave action, and so they may stand up fairly well as far as permanent damage is concerned. The whole rise could take place and water come across, perhaps not destroy the seawalls that are there holding the land behind.
We sure hope so. Thank you very much, Dr. Bob Sheets from the National Hurricane Center.
What have we learned from these conversations with Michael Williams and Dr. Bob Sheets? Well, if the hurricane stays on this present course, we already have the timetable. You have an idea now of when it's actually going to make land. But we now also know that if it stays on this exact course, those of us north of the eye, and that looks like it's going to include Miami, Hialeah, certainly Fort Lauderdale, probably some parts of South Dade and Kendall, probably are going to be feeling a pretty good effect. Some of the higher, bigger, more intensive winds. Those south of the eye, that looks, if you continue that course again, like Homestead, Florida City, Key Largo, are not going to have as intensive winds. That doesn't mean you're not going to be in a hurricane. You most certainly are. Winds of 80 and 90 miles an hour, as Michael explained, that is definitely a hurricane. However, you may not get the same kind of winds that we're going to be experiencing up here in the north. And again, that's if the hurricane stays on that westerly track that it happens to be on right now, and that is not a positive. That could definitely change. Just drawing scenarios for you right now as we approach the bewitching hour.
Yeah, and of course...
Few cars on the road right now, which is good. There's a few curious motorists and some police officers who are now keeping people off of the beach in Fort Lauderdale. It is now off limits, and they're warning all motorists to go ahead and take shelter now. It's obviously very important at this time. There's an eerie, spooky, quiet calm on the streets. It's, as I said, it's practically deserted out there, and again, that is a good thing. I want to give you a tour now of some of the areas of Fort Lauderdale, and we'll start on the beach. You are traveling down A1A, Fort Lauderdale's Strip. It's quiet, it's dark. It's about 4 hours before the front edge of Hurricane Andrew will likely smash right into this city. Just before 8:30 p.m., the Strip is dead, you might say. Fort Lauderdale police have just now issued a order asking everyone to get off the beach. Prior to this, they were allowing people to surf and...
First of all, as far as latitude and longitude, and if you're not following this or tracking it, most people like to just say, how many miles east is it of us? And right now it's 100 miles east of Miami, I can tell you that. And once again, that is from the center of the eye of the hurricane. Remember, the winds that extend outwards beyond the eye reach a good 100 miles. So yes, we are starting to feel what is the beginning of the tropical storm force winds. Right now, that is anywhere from 40 to about 74 miles an hour. Of course, 75 being the cutoff for hurricane storm force winds or hurricane force winds, just the same. Again, as far as tracking a hurricane, you really couldn't have picked an easier one to track. It's been very much on course, meaning right now, if it keeps going at the momentum that we feel that it will, it arrive, or it should arrive, that is, the eye of the hurricane should arrive by daybreak. Right now, it is, again, backing winds of 140 miles an hour, and the beaches are already starting to feel the effects of the tropical storm force winds. And once again, I reiterate, they are anywhere from 40 to 74 miles per hour. Now, also, one other thing I'd like to mention with this system, as it did move through Nassau, a lot of questions were being asked. Why wasn't Nassau hit as hard? Nassau, again, was on the weaker end of the storm system. What happens is, I don't know if you can zoom in a little bit. We've got this behind me, and Dr. Bob Sheets has been working so busy. He's been so busy all day and all night. But where Nassau is, again, it's on the southern or the weaker side of the system. The eye of the hurricane is in the middle. The stronger winds are in the northwestern quadrant, and basically they are backing speeds, again, of 140 miles an hour along the wall. But as it moves or motions to the west, take the top spin as well, top speed, which is now 60 miles an hour. Add that to the 140 miles an hour, and that area that will be hit by those winds will be probably the hardest hit area. So that's why when we were talking about our two Michael Williams earlier, who's in Nassau, that's why he wasn't experiencing the brunt end or the worst part of the system, but that is
First, well, actually, we're looking at 43rd Street, and you can see that the wind has already started to pick up significantly.
About how long ago was that?
This is probably 25 minutes ago. We made a beeline here. Let me tell you that the police chief over in Miami Beach has now asked Patrick Frazier and Carlos Harrison to get off the beach. They're asking all of the crews on the beach now. They feel that the winds have increased significantly enough to warrant that action. So Patrick and Carlos are heading north and hope to have a shot in the Hallover Beach area, which I passed by probably 15 or 20 minutes ago, and they should be able to bring you some pretty good pictures.
When the police chief asked them to get off the beach, did he mean that things were worse in South Beach? Did he intend for them to go to Hallover Beach, or would he prefer that they just get off the beach entirely?
No, I think this is the news people are looking for the pictures and to bring back the information. This is where things are happening right now, all along the beach area. So they figure if they can't get by the way, you're looking at some pictures of some downed trees. It's in the area of the Fontainebleau Hilton. We'll have a picture coming up here momentarily of a boat that was partially submerged here. You can see it. It's way off in the distance. It's on the other side of Indian River there, taking on water.
And this is only in the very early stages?
Early stages. At this point, I would say the winds were probably no more than 60, gusting at 60 miles an hour.
Did you see much boat damage, or was that just the only thing you saw?
I tell you, I was trying to negotiate here. Now, I think we're up in... I'm trying to remember now. This is the beach that's at about 63rd Street, just before the turn that you'd make to come back over the bridge that takes you to the 79th Street Causeway in Channel 7. And the wind was just intense. This is that intersection here at 71st, and I have to tell you that I was really struggling just to stand up.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That's bad.
Yeah.
And the worst is going to hit about 5 o'clock, they're saying. So if you can imagine the intensity of this,
right. Here's a shot at Ocean Terrace. This is right on the beach here, and this is I called one of our producers, Bill Behovey, to tell him that I did see some sand drifting over the top of the dunes here, and you can see they built this barrier about 3 or 4 years ago to keep the beach erosion down, and part of the fencing and stuff has already come down, even in these light winds.
You felt a lot of sand flying around out there?
Yeah, I'm going to be doing some serious cleaning on the camera before I head back out.
You are going back out then?
Yeah, I know. My wife Jan and my 6-week-old son Calvin are at home, and I want them to know that I'm fine. And our crews are not going to do anything too hazardous, but we do want to bring some pictures and information back to the people.
I'm sure Jan will be happy to hear that.
How was the driving? How was it to negotiate out there?
Well, you can see here I'm driving with the camera on my shoulder, and I'm sure that if the police knew that we were doing that, they'd probably ask us not to. But we're in Bal Harbor here. Same thing. Lights out, all the street lights out. Here heading over the bridge at Hallover. and just gusting wind and significant rain at this point.
Any particular streets look like at this point, whether you can tell, are going to have a flooding problem?
I'd suggest to you that all these areas, including up into Golden Beach, look to suffer the worst. Any of the areas, as all the people at the Hurricane Center have been telling us, the low-lying areas close to the ocean are gonna get some serious rain.
Ralph, when you were out, did you see any people out other than news people or police?
The police officers you see here at the William Lehman Causeway blocking traffic going eastbound were the last living souls I saw until I opened the door and walked in here.
So people are listening to the warnings. Well, that's good. At least no thrill seekers out there.
Right. Here, this is I-95 at the Ives Dairy interchange, and that's looking north. Again, no traffic, no one on the road. Swing around here and look south, same thing. Not even troopers were out on the road now.
It looked like that the traffic lights were out.
Yeah,
there.
It's 2:20. Our electricity has gone out in the morning. Hurricane isn't even here.
We'll have the highest potential for flooding, the highest winds, and the largest storm surge. So that's what we're looking at right now from the Hurricane Andrew, as it continues to bear down on South Florida at this hour, now pushing 2:30. By 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, on towards 7, 8 o'clock, we'll have the worst part of the storm, and as Dr. Sheets indicated earlier, 6, 6:30, maybe 7 o'clock in the Cutler Ridge area, Homestead area, Florida City area. That's where the eye will most likely make landfall, judging by all the information that's at hand right now. Penny, Joan?
Thank you, Steve. You know, we're already beginning to get reports of some major damage. We understand we just got word that a transformer blew in downtown Fort Lauderdale. All of the streetlights are apparently out. It's apparently just gone dark in downtown Fort Lauderdale. So, as I said, reports of major damage already coming in.
We've also got an update from the wire services. Dr. Sheets is telling us he had one death confirmed in the Bahamas and Luther Island.
1 o'clock in the Cutler Ridge area, Homestead area, Florida City area. That's where the eye will most likely make landfall, judging by all the information that's at hand right now. Penny, Joan?
Thank you, Steve. You know, we're already beginning to get reports of some major damage. We understand we just got word that a transformer blew in downtown Fort Lauderdale. All of the streetlights are apparently out. It's apparently just gone dark in downtown Fort Lauderdale. So, as I said, reports of major damage already coming in.
We've also got an update from the wire services. Dr. Sheets was telling us he had one death confirmed in the Bahamas and Luther Island. According to the Kenyan government, now 4 people have been killed in the storm. We believe that they were either on Luther Island or Abaco Island. But again, that's 4 deaths in the Bahamas. Oh, I see. So rather than the Dade Broward line, does that bode a little bit worse for the Keys then? We're pretty concerned about that area.
Well, they're going to get more of an offshore flow and off of Florida Bay, so they're going to get some problems in the upper Keys as a result of that. But the worst part is, again, the onshore flow there on the north side, Key Biscayne, downtown Miami, here in Coral Gables, and so on northward into the Miami Beach area.
Okay, Dr. Sheets, thank you very much, and we'll check back with you in just a few minutes. I think now we have the opportunity to go live to our photographer, Ralph Rayburn, who is at Hallandale Beach Boulevard and A1A. Ralph, are you with us?
Okay, I'm not sure he's quite ready.
Yes.
Okay, he's ready now.
Yeah.
There he
He is ready, just ready. Ralph, what are you seeing? What are you hearing?
Well, I certainly hope you're seeing a picture at this point.
We do, yes, we do.
Yeah, that's the tower, and you're looking back, looking west right now. Yeah, I'm going to come back to the truck for a second, get something to wipe the lens off from Adam Rice, and we'll take a little walk out here on the beach. Let me see. Okay. Pardon the darkness for a second there. We'll just keep moving
It
here.
looks pretty good, Ralph. Keep going.
Okay.
We can see well. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. How does it feel to you from the time that you showed us those other pictures?
I think I should start gaining weight because I feel like a kite here with this big yellow jacket on. It's starting to blow pretty strong. It's not just pushing me backwards right now. There's an empty lifeguard stand here. Hopefully I get a shot down here and show you some of the waves. I'm going to wipe the lens off one more time here. Hang on.
Well, while you're doing that, we have to point out that Ralph Rayburn is about, what would you say, Joan, 6'4", and definitely not a little guy, and he feels like he's being blown around like
Throw a little light on here. Anyway, as you can see, the rain's coming almost due sideways now, right into the lens of the camera. I'm sure that Will Harbison, our operations manager, is going to be happy with the condition of this camera when we get done. I'll wipe the lens again here. Anyway, we're not going to hang here too long because we've been listening to Bob Sheets, and he knows more about this stuff than we do. But we wanted to give our viewers at home a chance to see what it's like for the people down here as I stumble over something.
As you're making your way back to wherever you're going, and we'll take whatever shots you can give us during that time, how was the driving out there at this point?
Well, Adam Rice, one of our live truck engineers who's operating this unit we're working from, pointed out some bus benches on Hallandale Beach Boulevard that had already been blown over by the wind. So the bus benches are made all of concrete and some plywood. You got to figure that the winds are pretty strong to blow those things over.
You know, that rain looks almost like hail. Does it look that way to you there?
I'm sorry, I got to wipe the lens again. There's a tremendous amount of sand mixed with this rain right now, and it's whipping around here pretty strong. These, amazingly, what are these things called here?
Chaise lounges.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, it's kind of hard.
That's a nice way of putting it.
They're strapped down, but none of them have started flying yet. We're not going to hang here too much longer, but we did want to give you guys a picture.
Okay, your wife Jan will be happy to hear that you're not going to hang there too much longer, but we certainly appreciate the pictures, Ralph, and we'll get back to you if you have anything else in a little while.
Okay. I've just been handed a piece of paper from our producer monitoring our wire services. We understand there was a big fire. This is a big fire at Northwest 172nd Avenue and Biscayne. It's a two-story building. This note says it will most likely have to burn to the ground, and they do think it was started by the hurricane. Whether it'll burn to the ground because no one can get to it or it's just not worth the effort, we don't know. I'm not sure what...
Thanks a lot, Steve. We'll get back to you in a few minutes. Right now, we are going to Carlos Harrison, who is live in Broward County at Hallandale Beach Boulevard and A18. Carlos, tell us.
We are out here at Hallandale Beach Boulevard to what we would know as Broward Boulevard, along that area. Now, for the most part, they're hit and miss areas. Not exactly what you would say a massive area. There might be a 5 or 6 block area without power, then another 5 or 6 block area with power. So it's almost at intervals. We have spoken with some Florida Power and Light officials, and they're basically telling us when they have a lot of transformers go or when they have a lot of power lines go down, the way they're going to deal with it is they're just going to go ahead and let that entire area shut off. Unless there's a real emergency, they're not going to be sending crews in there with these winds that we're going to be experiencing now to try and put the telephone poles or the electric poles back up or fix the transformers. They'll do it after the hurricane is gone, and that would be sometime tomorrow around probably 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock.
Is it the winds that are causing these transformer explosions, do you think? What is causing it? It's obviously from the hurricane, but what part of the hurricane is causing these things to happen?
You know, we experienced a couple of these. We got to see firsthand a little while ago when we were driving down here. Actually, it's not a little while ago anymore, about 2 or 3 hours ago. We actually saw them blow. It seemed to us at the time the only possible explanation for it could have been the wind, because there was nothing else happening at the time other than the wind. So,
hours ago. We also have a report of a large fire at Northeast 172nd and Biscayne Boulevard. And I think this would be part of the evacuation area, actually. Don't know what building this is. Well, apparently it was a building where boats were being built, some sort of a boat building. Don't know what it is. Might have been a marina, I'm not sure. Northeast 172nd and Biscayne Boulevard, apparently a large fire, and apparently the fire department is not going to be responding to this at this time, so if there's a fire, it's probably going to just have to burn itself out.
We've just been told it's Mako Marina, where that fire that you're speaking of was. Just recognizing some of those pictures that Ralph just showed us, Ralph Raymond we refer to. That's the area right behind, not far from Channel 7 actually. That's around 163rd and Collins Avenue where some of these pictures are taken. And again, you know, you really don't get the full brunt of the hurricane or the full brunt even of the storm in these pictures. These
pictures, the bridge going over to Holliver.
These pictures, you look at them right now, they don't look any different than a thunderstorm in South Florida on any particular day. I mean, there's nothing extremely dramatic about these pictures. An overturned tree in South Florida is not a revelation, as a matter of fact. Jillian Ware has been following the situation for us for a while now. You know, you can't help but wonder, Jillian, if the folks in the Keys
who we were always so concerned about, actually, because of the position of the hurricane, the way it's coming in, as far down as Key West, they've kind of lucked out, haven't they?
They certainly have, and when you consider that on the south side of the eye, it's one of the weaker areas, if you can call any area a weak area within a hurricane. Rick, you're probably right in your assessment because, again, as Michael was mentioning when he was reporting from the Nassau area, and he was saying, you know, it was incredibly somber. You would expect something a little more dramatic.
The hurricane is scheduled. I say scheduled, and really, what kind of a schedule can you anticipate in the middle of a hurricane? But as close as we can anticipate, we think it's going to be arriving at least by 4:30 around the Cutler Ridge area. Again, the eye moving on shore by 4:30. Of course, we're starting to feel the winds here far west of 4:41.
Okay, it's
why don't we take this opportunity
about 10 minutes after 4 right now, so in about 20 minutes we're going to get the full part of it. It's really blowing.
I took a building about half an hour ago with Steve Adams or other weather person.
Flashlight over there. The worst is going to be over or what? Right, because, you know, you tend to think of disasters like this, you hope that FPL helps or anything. We're not seeing, There's so many power outages being reported. That's incredible. They're very lucky. But they are also under this boil water order where you have to keep reminding.
They still have a roof at least. We heard of that. What? They give a general.
Now we're on 163rd Street, I believe. We turned to go west on 163rd.
Love it, and welcome, Kelly.
Good morning. I think we were sleeping about 5 feet away, so we were here in body, if not in spirit. I understand there's now a boil water order for all of Dade County. If you've never had to do that before, what is it, 10 minutes?
8 minutes.
8 minutes?
To boil your water, and there's some makeshift methods about putting household bleach in, 8 drops per gallon or whatever. It doesn't sound like a great way to drink brackish water. I wouldn't recommend it. I would recommend it boiling it, but that may not be possible.
If you don't have the power, that's at least an option in a house.
Yes, just in.
When were these shot?
These were shot about half an hour ago.
Oh, really?
And it's obviously light, so we can see a lot more detail.
You're seeing the flooding. Of William Lehman Causeway on A1A. We're moving south. We eventually get to 163rd Street.
Whoa.
You'll
the
see,
roof is off that.
And you'll see a lot more roof damage coming up.
Obviously pieces now floating in puddles that'll be there for
That's
some
a
time.
street that looks like a lake
Right,
there.
there is water in the street.
And the rain's
it's
still falling.
not too deep, but it is covered.
Is demolished there, but I guess if that's the worst of their problems, not so bad,
Right,
huh?
you'll see more. This is a gas station sign that's knocked over, I believe.
And the wind's still whipping.
Right, it was really windy.
Now the road is dried out here. You can.
You'll see up here coming out the Burger King. You'll see a better shot of that in a Kentucky Fried Chicken. Its parking lots are flooded. See a better shot of that in a Kentucky Fried Chicken. Its parking lots are flooded.
How deep is the water? Do you think?
I don't know. I would say less than a foot, but it may have been higher at one point. I'm surprised that a lot of the windows that weren't shattered.
Really?
A lot
The
of them,
wind was that strong?
A lot of them, it was driving south on A1A, the rain really started picking up again, the wind started picking up. You'll see up here a roof. There's a roof laying in the road.
Now this was shot just a half an hour ago.
And yes, and here's where that roof came from, we believe, over this building here, one of the hotels. I'm not sure the name of that.
Wow. Yes, there's
So
a lot of
structural damage.
A lot of rubble there. We see timber and things. It looks like raw wood from something. I don't know. Maybe something they were just building. The Blue Seas Hotel. Here it is. Water flowing out in front.
But
What
you're
used
right,
to be a
there's more
street.
glass intact than we
Right,
thought,
I was-
although they said that if it had the tint on it, it was about as safe in Florida as it could be.
Now what's that? That's more than a power line. That's a transformer or something.
The whole pole and all.
The whole pole and all. Down.
Now,
quickly
these
in the
two
middle of
guys
the street.
here, they were working for the Sun Sentinel. We were surprised to see Eagle out, but they were doing the same thing we were doing. Just trying to...
Getting a story, huh?
Exactly. Some more heavy rain pouring off the buildings.
Looks like they still have a roof at least. We can give them that.
What, if you could generalize?
Now we're on 163rd Street, I believe. We turned to go west on 163rd. We're eventually going to get to Biscayne Boulevard and go north. On Biscayne Boulevard, we really ran into a surprise, some major damage you're going to see here in a moment.
That was a street light.
This is a street light. I tell you, we saw more traffic lights in the middle of the road, and when you're driving under them, you see them swaying, the ones that are still there. Now here, we're right in the middle of Biscayne Boulevard, trying to go north, and that's what we saw.
It's a huge tree right in the middle.
Right.
And we're going to be seeing a lot of that. It's going to take a while
Now,
to get
this
that
is
stuff
this
cleared.
is the worst damage we found. This is a nightclub in North Miami Beach, Maco's Bay Club, burned to the ground, still burning while we were there. I don't know what started
Wow. Who knows what could have caused it?
Right.
This leaking gas situation is a big problem.
Ken Tolliver got out here to shoot these pictures, and this is, I believe, where our tour ends. We came back to bring this here as quick as we could.
Now, what is that building again?
It's
that's
a
burned out?
nightclub.
It's just a hull of a building.
It's called the Maco's Bay Club. It's at 172nd in Biscayne.
Rather well known.
Right, right.
Still
Doesn't look
burning,
like
as a
there's
matter of
going to
fact.
be anything left of it to know.
And no firefighters to put it out.
Right.
these conditions.
We reported this, I believe, 2 or 3 in the morning. We first got the call on this, and this is the first chance we could get there to get pictures. And we got there, what, a half an hour ago, and it was still burning.
Is this the one that said was the Mako Marina?
Right. We reported it earlier as Mako Marina, but it's Maco's Bay Club. And I believe that's where our pictures are going to end.
Was it hard to drive the car through?
Well, I didn't have to drive. I was simply a passenger, but I tell you, we were going over the William Lemon Causeway, and Ken Tolliver, he's used to this. I guess he's done this before.
He's kind of stoic.
Right. I, however, saw the windows shaking and thought maybe we're not doing such a smart thing, but we made it. And
Was it scary, really?
it was a little scary, I thought. I felt like the windows were going to shatter, and before we left, Ken advised me to watch for things flying at the vehicle because they will break glass, and you never know what will happen. So we made it. We're back, and we hope to get some more pictures.
And thanks for doing it. We
You're
appreciate
going back
it.
out?
We'll see.
Take a little break, have some coffee, and think about that thought, huh? Again, this area apparently is not really one of the hardest hit. From what we're understanding, Kendall really took a major blow, and those folks still are not done. That's apparently where the eye passed over, and we're hearing a lot of things about roofs off and homes. We, of course, saw buildings that really had no one in them, at least we hope not for the time being, but the homes, we don't know because Kendall was really not an evacuation area at the time. So this must have been mostly wind and tree damage, I would imagine.
We've got a lot of reports of damage in Coral Gables as well, and we expect to see a lot of damage in downtown Miami. We haven't gotten a crew in there, but if we could, it'd probably be very interesting pictures because all the signs point toward a lot of damage in downtown Miami. And we've heard that there's pretty much
WSVN and see they're into their new newscast, and we'll join them and see what they're finding.
Unless you're fleeing people in the business that we're in, we're there to broadcast and try to help other people. So it's Mother Nature can be crazy.
And our emergency crews worked very well in getting people out. I mean, a lot of people decided at the last minute, oops, I'm going to go to a shelter. We had the buses running till like 8 o'clock at night. They ran fairly late. We had emergency crews going in and getting people out who couldn't get out, who decided at the last minute they wanted to get out and go to a shelter. And so the evacuation effort, I think, was superb in all of this.
There's one wonderful thing about a hurricane, and that is that it really gives you time to prepare. Unlike earthquakes and tornadoes that just come out of nowhere and when you least expect them, at least with a hurricane, if you act responsibly and if you're given and get enough information, you can do things that can save your life and save the life of your families. And I think this is a hurricane that, if nothing else, has proven just that if we do those things, we can't avoid it. I feel bad for the people of California or the people of Kansas who have to deal with earthquakes and tornadoes respectively, because they don't get this kind of warning. They're not told that you have 24 hours or 48 hours and you can prepare and you can do this or you can do that.
Sometimes with a tornado, you do get some warnings. I remember spending many nights in the basement waiting for a tornado and watching it develop and go overhead. So I mean, it does happen with the tornado, but not like this. Although looking back, if you could have redone it, did you do all you would have liked to have done to prepare for this? I know in my situation with my house, I didn't. For example, I didn't have enough time to take the awnings off. I don't know what happened, but I suspect I have no awnings when I go back home. That seems to be the case all over. Those who didn't take their awnings down lost them. I suspect that's what happened at my place. I would have reinforced the doors a little better. When I heard that it was going to be a Category 5 storm, I thought, I haven't done enough. There is no way. What I did to my place would not have withstood a Category 5 storm. Or at least
that it could have been. It had the possibility of becoming a Category 5.
That's right. We thought for sure it would be at one point.
At one point, we were only 5 miles off from being a Category 5, and I remember thinking, boy, it's gaining strength. It's still got the Gulf Stream ahead of it. How can we avoid becoming? But I guess you have to take into consideration that anything can happen with a natural disaster, in other words, Mother Nature. Anything can happen, anything is possible. In some respects, the high-pressure ridge that was sitting above the area for so long was responsible for steering Andrew our way. Had we had a
live broadcast from WSVN television in Kendall outside the Miami area. Let's listen in.
Here, if we can find out for the residents of this area, Kendall, Country Walk, and let them know where they need to go. They obviously are hearing that word that they just, any way they can get out, they've got to get over to the nearest fire station or go see friends.
Carlos, did they say Country Walk was gone, basically?
Basically, we've got to get over there, take a look. We'll get you that video just as soon as we can. It does not sound pretty.
No, that's a highly populated area. It's very dense. Everything's very close together. That could be a tremendous blow.
And people there may not have evacuated. They may have tried to stick it out because that's further inland.
Right,
well,
that's close to the
That would be a surprise.
Kelly, I mean, my family, we live very close to where we thought the storm was going to be coming ashore. What was in the evacuation zone earlier when we were doing those stories yesterday, and I moved my family out to stay with my mother out in West Dade because I thought they'd be safer. So far, I think everything's okay, but we don't know. It seems like it's taken the brunt of the storm is out here where we thought we'd be safest and away from the water.
Just shows how unpredictable these storms could be, because that was the exact thought. We said go west, go west, go west. In fact, several of us were invited to stay in West Dade in the Kendall area, thinking that that would be the one place to go, and wouldn't you know it, that seems to be away from the water, close to the Everglades. It would be safe, and yet
They just haven't stood up to the wind. This is a fierce, very, very fierce storm. We've seen Hugo, we've seen Gilbert and other places. The damage we're seeing here as we move further out, the reports that you just heard that we're getting, it sounds like we have suffered some terrible, terrible damage here in South Florida from this storm.
You know, Carlos, we've been talking about this storm surge. Do you see any evidence of that, or is this mostly wind damage that you see? caused the damage that you see, do you think?
The maximum damage that we see is obviously caused by the wind. It is the roofs. It is the cars that are pelted by the missiles. It is the trees that are felled. Those whole chunks of Metro Rail that you saw that were torn off and thrown down. Luckily, no one was hurt there. As far as water damage, what we're seeing, it appears to be the rising water of that heavy, heavy rainfall that we all saw during the night, that we could hear pelting our roofs. But it doesn't appear, at least in the areas we've been, we have not been out to the coastal regions yet to see any of that storm surge.